Don't underestimate how much better your life can become with multiple income streams, right? Keep your full-time job, have a side hustle, living the dream, building something that people want on the side. And there's no saying you have to make the leap, but when you're ready, if you're ready, go make that leap.
You're listening to Customer Growth Sessions, presented by Intergrowth, where we talk through strategies to help up-and-coming e-commerce businesses bring in more customers. I'm your host, Pat Ahern. Let's jump in.
All right, listeners, welcome back to the latest episode of Customer Growth Sessions. Today, I'm thrilled to have on Ronak Trivedi, the co-founder and CEO over at Pietra. Ro, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Can you start out with giving us an overview of what Pietra is and all the different things that you do to help e-com brands?
Yeah, good question. So Pietra is a platform, it's an operations platform for small business owners. And I think of it as the operational backbone for running a business. And people always ask me, how does this compare to, let's say, a Shopify or something like that? The best way to think about Pietra is, while Shopify is your storefront and your website, Pietra helps with everything that is underneath that website. So we specialize in tools that help people connect with vendors and factories and suppliers. We help people with tools to make their shipping and storage efficient. And we build a lot of AI-powered tools to help people with marketing and sales and influencer management. And so the best way to think about it, to say it concisely, is if you have a website where you're selling a product, Pietra is where you manage all of your operations. And you keep your website, you use Pietra as a platform, and together they work symbiotically to help you run your business.
And I was joking with you before we started recording. I've been on your site a dozen different times. I've even signed up for an account just so I can play around and see all the manufacturers on there. And I swear every time I go on the site, there are like 3 new features that you guys offer that I've never seen before. It's amazing. So listeners, definitely check it out. They're doing some really cool stuff over there. Bro, I think of you guys as almost like this catalyst for the brands that are, or maybe like the founders that are either, I would say, nervous, afraid, whatever word you want to choose, to actually jump in and launch their first business, or just early stage founders that are looking to scale up to the next level and don't know where to begin, all the way up to massive brands. I want to specifically start out talking really to those, call it those individuals that want to launch a business, but fear is holding them back. Fear is a super broad question, but I'm thinking about launching a business. I was thinking about an example before this. I'm thinking about launching a coffee cup brand. We're going to have these really cool, unique handles is what I've come up with. What are some of the common fears that are likely going to hold me back, and why should I put those aside and say, hey, I don't need to worry about this concern?
Yeah, good question. I think this is the best time, ever to start a business. And I think in our world, in tech, I think the barriers to entry to starting a business have been lowered, and they were lowered starting 15 years ago, 20 years ago. But if you're not starting a high-tech company, the barriers to entry have always seemed pretty high. And when I talked to business owners, it wasn't that they had a lack of ideas. It was that they had a lack of access or understanding of kind of how you would go about this. And that is what I would tell people that want to start a business today, which is, thanks to platforms like Pietra, we're not the only game in town, but companies like Pietra, what we do is fundamentally bring access and affordability and ease to millions of people that want to start and scale these businesses. So I like to think, like, pre-Pietra, you want to start a line of coffee mugs with fun handles. Maybe you want to scale up into making your own line of, or your own coffee, right? You want to have a custom blend or whatever it might be. And you want to scale this and make it a real business. Most people have that idea and then stop and say, well, this seems like very daunting, right? Like, how would I begin? And they maybe start with a Google search, or now they start with a ChatGPT search. And if you start with a ChatGPT search or a question, you'll probably get somehow pointed to Pietra. And what we try and do as a company is remind people that it's actually much easier than you think to get started. Like, you can log into Pietra and ask the AI something like, I'm looking for ceramic mugs with fun handles. Find me factories that I can reach out to at this price point in this region. And it will go and, thanks to AI, crawl the entire internet, come back and give you, okay, here's the factory that I think you should work with. Here's the contact information. And you can just work your way through starting and scaling a business and realize that now everyone has the power of the few. And that's a long-winded way of saying there used to be these walled gardens. These walled gardens are now broken down. And thanks to AI, thanks to some of these agents that have been built in the AI space, you can now do the work of huge teams that are very expensive and do them in seconds or minutes. And ultimately, what this leads to is everything that you previously thought you couldn't get access to, or was too expensive, or was too time consuming because you want to start it as a side hustle, let's say, becomes something that is actually not that time consuming, not that expensive, not that hard, right? And that's where we are today. Basically, the technology has been created where if you're a small business owner and you have an idea, now you can actually go from idea to product and market way faster than anyone could ever have imagined even 3 to 4 years ago. And I'm like thinking, like, I can visualize it where it might have previously taken you a year to get that business off the ground. Like, really, you could probably get that business off the ground in a couple weeks, right, with Pietra. So that's kind of the magic of where we are today, which is most people think it's not possible. They don't have access. And thanks to like AI basically making the internet open and information accessible, now they can actually just go and type in what they want and get the equivalent of 50 workers to do some work on the internet and then come back and report back and give you the answer.
So concern number 2 that I think a lot of guests would have is it seems like a big investment for me to launch an e-com brand. How would you respond to that?
Good question. So I think the short answer is it doesn't have to be. I think 10 years ago, you listen to all these talking heads and there was basically 2 worlds. I have enough money, I can raise venture, I can buy a ton of inventory and get started. Or you had the dropship community, right? Which is like, I have no investment in product and I'll find something and dropship it. And I will basically be a marketing person, a trend spotter and a marketing person combined. And I think what happened over the last 10 years was huge industries got built around both those things, right? And people are like, oh my God, if I want to start the next AG1, it's going to cost me $1 million or a couple $1 million. And then if I want to be a drop shipper, I'd have to like become this expert marketer and find a factory that I can resell their products. Now, what I realized is in building this company, that was information asymmetry. Really, if you think about it, starting a company is, can you afford the minimum order volume, right? Just to get started. Can you cut out all the costs that would actually add up and make it really expensive? So I'll give you an example. Let's say you weren't super technically savvy and design savvy. You probably need to pay someone to design your website. You probably need to pay someone to design your products. You probably need to pay someone to figure out the specifications of that ceramic mug so that it can be like dishwasher friendly. Then you probably need to find someone to find the factories that are super high quality that work with the big brands. Then you probably have to pay a fulfillment center to hold your product. Then you probably have to pay a marketing agency to help you market your product. Okay, right there I just named, like, that's all these services that you would have. Those are the costs that make this untenable. It's not that you can't afford 150 mugs that are custom designed that can sit in a warehouse and you could sell it on your Shopify site. It's actually all these added costs around operations and the software you have to buy that gets installed, these apps on your Shopify website. Shopify itself is not that expensive, right? The inventory itself, surprisingly, to get started is not that expensive. And so I think what I have noticed is when you cut out all of the middlemen that are increasing costs, you get left with something that is very affordable. A $39 membership for Pietra, access to 50,000 factories with 0% commission, where you can just type in and find any factory in the world. You can work with them directly. You can negotiate your own prices with them. You can ask the AI to design you the products, make the specs for the products, do market research for those products, right? These are all things that would have cost thousands and thousands of dollars. And when you take all that away, you realize it's probably $39 and maybe a couple $100 on custom packaging, maybe a couple $1,000 on inventory, and you're off to the races. And I think the other thing that I'll end with, which is not to overthink the costs. You don't need $1 million worth of inventory to figure out if someone wants to buy your mugs, Pat. What you need is 50 of them to see if someone wants to buy it online. What you need is 150 of them made for $2 each or whatever it is. And that's what I remind people. And people come to me and they say, you help launch celebrity brand X and this famous person's company. And I remind them, I won't name any name, but almost every celebrity brand that I've seen still starts with a relatively small amount of inventory to test demand for the product. And so you don't need to think about these stories of like, we need $2 million and we need to like be in every Costco on planet Earth. We should think of it as like, what is the smallest amount of investment you need to make in order to figure out if people want your product and you can build a community around it. That number is usually 10 to 20 times lower than what people think.
Man, brilliant. So concern number 3, I could see a lot of people coming to you with is, hey, I'm thinking of launching this e-com brand, but I have job security right now. I really like getting a steady paycheck. I'm not sure if I want to leave my full-time job and commit to this venture quite yet.
Yeah, I think like the backbone of Pietra is the side hustle economy. And what I would tell them is don't leave your job. I think people have the wrong kind of like risk assessment, like gene, or maybe said it differently. I think they miscalculate risk a lot. I would say to someone, you don't need to go all in with companies like Pietra now. You can, for 5 hours, for a couple weekends in a row, get a full business off the ground that looks and feels professional. And you may be putting in 5 to 10 hours of side hustle work twice a week. That could be Saturday or Sunday. That could be a couple hours a day after work. What you really need to understand is that these tools are working in the favor of these side hustle warriors to de-risk the company. Quit your job and go all in when you can make the money and the math works to cover your salary that you have now. And don't also, what I remind people, I was on stage demoing Pietra to like a couple thousand people. I also was reminding them, don't underestimate how much better your life can become with multiple income streams. Right? Keep your full-time job, have a side hustle, live in the dream, building something that people want on the side. And there's no saying you have to make the leap, but when you're ready, if you're ready, go make that leap. And then do with eyes wide open, as de-risked as you can get. You can never really de-risk everything, but you don't need to go and start on day one with extreme anxiety. I would say go buy 50 mugs and go try and from the best factories in India or whatever, these awesome ceramic mugs, and go try and sell them. And if that takes you 2 months, great. Someone else is paying that salary. And on Saturdays, you're trying to sell these mugs. Like, you'll learn so much and you'll have job security and you won't go to sleep on Sunday night and wake up within a sweat. And don't be ashamed of that either. I think I was looking at some pretty crazy stats around the side hustle generation, but we really are that side hustle generation, right? Where I don't think even necessarily that, I think people will be eventually, they might have a steady full-time job and they might have 3 or 4 businesses on the side. Why not? If AI can do the work of 90% of the work to operate a business, why wouldn't you have 3 or 4 of them, right? That's the world that I can picture and I think is going to happen. And then when you bring it back down to real life, I would say start as a weekend warrior. Start Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. See what you can do. You'll be surprised. And I think the last thing I'll say is you will know when it's the right time to make the leap into making it your full-time gig. It's almost like a gut instinct feeling of you'll wake up one day and say, okay, it's like ready now. And then you won't have any fear, you won't have any anxiety, it'll logically make sense. And it's totally fine. I think like we should celebrate that.
I'm a big advocate for that approach as well, of like moonlighting your side hustle until it can justify a full-time salary. One little tidbit I will add into there is if you are launching a side hustle and you're thinking, hey, I really want to make this my full-time gig as soon as possible, highly recommend set aside personal savings so that you can get ready for some of those early months where maybe you're not able to pay yourself what you historically would have at your previous job. And then 2, I would also say focus on figuring out how you can live as frugally as possible. Especially, let's say that if you're single or maybe you're in a relationship but you don't have kids yet, like really great time for you to say, hey, why don't I see if I can live on like beans and rice? Why don't I like try and eat ramen a couple days a week for lunch and save myself a couple bucks here and there? You'll thank yourself down the road if you can get used to like drastically decreasing your quality of life in the form of like luxury expenses. If you can cut out takeout food, all that is going to work wonders in terms of helping you to live with a lot less stress on your mind when you do have those tougher financial months.
Amazon is the ultimate double-edged sword when it comes to generating sales. It's an incredible source of revenue for e-com brands, but become too successful and you risk Amazon creating the Amazon Basics version of your product and taking away all your sales. We see it happen all the time, and that's why we help businesses to build a second customer acquisition machine before they lose their Amazon sales. Interested in hearing more? Reach out to us at intergrowth.com/CGS to book a complimentary strategy session with our team. Once again, that's intergrowth.com/CGS. All right, back to the show.
Totally. To add to that, I think it's always hard starting a business and running a business. And I think there also is a perception reality gap a little bit in terms of like high tech founders building tech companies. Like they are the people that need to like suffer and it's hard. That's not true. It's hard for any business. It doesn't matter if it's a services business, an agency, a tech company, a the local coffee shop. It's all going to be hard. And so this sacrifice is not unique to any single person. And the other thing I'll say, which is getting really, really smart and is valuable, is we see people going to Pietra and using it as a business coach, because now you can have basically your own business AI, and asking it like, how do I plan out what my sales need to be, what my conversion rate on my site needs to be, how much inventory should I order, what's the price point, and how many do I have to sell at this price point to hit this salary that I want to pay myself. It kind of removes the guesswork out of starting a business, right? And you might find, hey, you work at Uber or something like that. You have a pretty high salary. Like maybe what happens is you have to sell a lot of mugs to make up for that salary. Or you might work with your business AI and put together a plan of maybe we should have a luxury price point. Maybe you should make a luxury set of mugs because you can sell less of them. You can sell it for more money. You're going to have to do different things around marketing and outreach, and fine. I would say that it's very exciting that we live in a time where, a PhD caliber business coach can say, what is your goal? And let's just reverse engineer that goal. Maybe this means you buy a different amount of inventory, you price the product differently, you hit a different customer segment. All these things that Pietra can help with, I say, just go to your AI and ask. And I don't mean like you should be dependent on it, but think of it as they will be able to help the average business owner think through these problems in a very logical, straightforward way. And when you think about most of these problems in a logical, straightforward way, I think you start realizing that you sound a lot more like Elon than you think, right? Like Elon will break it down and be like, it's first principles. It's pretty simple. It's like step 1, then step 2, then step 3, then step 4. That's what you want to get to with your business, where you're removing the vagueness and the variables and you're saying, look, this is what I'm trying to hit, this click-through rate at this price point, this many mugs per month sold to this segment. And then you start to feel like, okay, this is either doable or not doable, but even questions like, when will I be able to quit turns into, once I sell this many X, I will be able to, right? This is the profit margin, et cetera. So these business AIs and these business coaches are really, really smart at helping small business owners kind of learn the basics of what it's going to take to eventually make it your full-time gig.
I think we're on concern number 4. And I'm struggling to think of a really big coffee mug brand. So I'm going to totally pivot. We were talking about AG1 a few minutes ago. Let's say I'm thinking of launching like a big supplement brand. Maybe one of the concerns that's holding me back is knowing, well, hey, there's also AG1 out there, probably 100 million, a couple 100 million annual revenue. It feels like they have an unlimited budget. They can afford all the tools. I'm not going to be able to afford any of that same stuff. How would you respond to that one?
Yeah, so this is where the e-commerce industry and the commerce industry broadly is going through a, let's call it evolution or revitalization, where people are realizing these tools, these software tools that were used by these massive companies are starting to become available to the regular small business owner, right? And Shopify plays a huge role in this, in really bringing the value of a lot of this really expensive software from 10, 15 years ago to be something that is affordable to the everyday business owner. And we are going through a time where we should think about it as all software, I think, is going to be nearly free at some point. And so all these tools that have historically been built to help you operate their business are now being bundled up into these business AIs. They're being bundled up into the knowledge that these AIs have. So I'll give you a perfect example. It used to be very expensive to purchase a tool that can predict trends or consumer trends or scan the internet and TikTok and Instagram and help you with market research about like, what are people in Chicago like really interested in purchasing in this industry? Those used to be tens of thousands of dollars. And if you had that information, guess what? You can like launch an amazing product that goes viral in Chicago because you have analyzed millions of data points. That can be done now on Pietra for $30 a month as part of the free bundle of software that you get. And it pulls in 1 million data points and you can just ask the AI like, hey, what's trending and what are Gen Zs talking about in the comments on TikTok in this industry? What would you do from a product perspective? I want to launch a product line targeting this demographic. And so you look at these really powerful tools and you realize that you can get it for the price at less than a cup of coffee a day, right? Like 3 times less than a coffee, really. And so that's what's happening in the world. Like all the expensive software that was built is now being democratized, like literally pennies on the dollar. And I think the bigger players are more worried than the smaller players, right? Because the bigger players were like, look, once we have escape velocity, we have these systems in place, the software is running, we're going to be always 2 steps ahead from the little guy. Now, You can just hit a few buttons and have all the same software and all the same systems that, the big companies have. It's pretty exciting to be a small business owner knowing that fact. And so you just fundamentally compete on a different dimension. Maybe you compete on community or marketing or creative, stuff that truly is different. But all these basic pieces of software, return software, customer support, product design software, all these things are now being bundled together, and AI is basically democratizing all of it and making it available to every single owner.
So as a follow-up within that, and let's say outside of Pietra, building upon that, as that early stage ecom brand, let's say some of those other non-Pietra tools that I should really be looking into signing up for so I'm on that same playing field as these massive brands.
Good question. I think the tools off the top of my head that I think people should be looking at, I'll start with the category of tools. I think that a lot of people in this industry obsess over operational processes or things they do day in and day out, week over week, that are not the key differentiators to the business. Those pieces of software feel like things like returns automation. Okay, so like loop returns is a great one. Things like PostScript for SMS or Klaviyo or Attentive or Yotpo for reviews or whatever it may be. These are things that you should just go and realize that your business is not going to be meaningfully different because you master these things, and you shouldn't be worried about purchasing those pieces of software because it's going to give you time back and brain space back to work on the things that actually do matter. And I will say the number one gotcha that I see people, or the trap I think people fall into, they obsess over an operational process that is not going to change the trajectory of their business. Yet it's something that they feel that they can master. And so they don't buy the software that automates it away. They kind of feel like they are happy being the master of that domain. And it's like the equivalent of the customer support rep that doesn't want to purchase Gorgeous or Intercom or something like that. It's cool. You can like do this really, really well if you're a Gmail wizard. But this is something that we should go and adopt the operational tools, because it will actually change the way you think about the business, how you operate. It will give you meaningful time back that you can spend on other things. And that one is probably in the gray area where people would say maybe customer support is a differentiator for a business. In which case, if you believe that, then go and spend all your time and effort on making that the best thing possible for the company. But to answer your question directly, I think the average Shopify brand owner that we've seen has 30 apps installed. Everything from packaging insurance to returns automation to pixel tracking to visitor ID. You just name all these things that people do. They're all getting super expensive. They're all commoditized at this point. People should just purchase them, use them the way 90% of the businesses are using them, and focus on the parts of the business that can't be replicated yet by other people or other companies. And it usually ends up being something around the creative part of a business. Right? That part, computers haven't really been able to solve yet. Someone could tell you, okay, I've done market research, you should launch a lip gloss product. But taking that idea and turning that into something that your customer group loves and uses every single day is like a whole different story.
Brilliant. I love what you were saying about the price point for those tools. I think that's one of the big learning lessons I've had over the years. And that's like one of the big 180s that I've taken. As it used to be, I would work with businesses and I'd try and almost like put together this piecemeal solution for them and say like, oh, we don't need to spend $100 a month on this. We can do this thing instead, and this sort of workaround. We can use Zapier and we can automate this stuff all coming together. And over time, I've realized like 9 times out of 10, it's better to spend that $100 and it's going to save you 2 hours over the course of the month, give you a little bit of peace of mind. Just keep it simple. Like, don't go overly complicated. Just simplify it wherever you can. Spend that extra money on the software.
Totally. For me, I fall into this trap, right? It's you take a piece of software and it's like, hey, this like simplifies our accounting. Let's just take like any random accounting software that would be pitched to us. And historically, I would say, why would we do this? Like, let's just manually bookkeep. And then when you really think about it, it's like, well, we're not going to differentiate ourselves in accounting. Almost always you look back and say, this wasn't the difference between succeeding or failing. Now, there's some small amount of time where you have to realize that if you need the money or you're in a financial crunch, you have to trade hard work for money leaving your bank account, right? It's like sweat equity. And that's okay to like understand, hey, we're doing this because we have to do it for this reason. I think that's okay. It's like you're looking at it eyes wide open. I think the problem is when people look at these solutions and say, I don't have to do it, but I want to do it. And then you're like, now you're just wasting time and effort. And startups and small businesses, it's all about putting the right amount of effort and getting leverage. Ultimately, the biggest learning is small businesses are small by design, right? By definition, I should say. Every minute of your day should be put into something where you are getting ROI. And people should look at it on a quarterly basis, a yearly basis, and think to themselves, it seems like every now and again, I got to fix this automation in some automation platform. But 1 hour a week for a whole year, and that app was like $9.99 a month or whatever it is, like maybe you should go buy the $9.99 a month. Like 1 hour a week, every week adds up when you take your salary and you consider it in that way. So yeah, I'm with you. And I've come full circle. I used to be very, very frugal for far too long. I think it's okay to be frugal for some periods of time. But, once you have achieved something and you realize that you can do more with your time or something different, then you should probably switch to like evaluating, is this a difference maker in my business, or am I just being, for lack of a better phrase, cheap?
Struggling to get new customers? We're here to help. Hey, this is Pat, the host of Customer Growth Sessions. Our agency, Intergrowth, has been helping e-commerce brands like Bella Bridesmaids, Brevity, and JS Dental to get more customers online since 2016. Interested in seeing how we'd help you? Head over to intergrowth.com/CGS to book a complimentary consultation with me. That's intergrowth.com/CGS. All right, back to the show.
What I've personally found really helpful within that is, and I give my old business partner a lot of credit for it. He was one of the big ones over time who really pushed me to say, like, Pat, we should spend $100 a month on this software. This is absolutely worth it. I find it really helpful now it doesn't have to be a number that you ever share with anyone, but internally do some mental math and come up with like a rough dollar value of an hour of your time. It could be you back it down based on like, what is the annual salary you want to pay yourself? And you say, hey, let's assume I'm going to work 50 weeks in a year, 40 hours in a week. So, that's what, 2,000 hours that come into play. Mm-hmm. And you can say, here's a rough hourly value of an hour of my time. I find it really helpful then to like 2 to 4x that number. So you have quite a bit of buffer, and then ask yourself, hey, if the cost of this software, as we have the money to justify it, saves me enough time to make it worthwhile, then I should sign up for the software. If not, maybe I hold off for another couple of months. That's helped me personally a ton with that side of things.
Totally. And I think, again, to kind of bring it back to like where we are in the world, we don't even necessarily need to think about software anymore like that, right? Like software is going to, like SaaS is going to ultimately like die as an industry in a lot of these verticals. And it's just like a fact, right? These small SaaS tools that were created pre-AI are now going to be something that an AI can just do very quickly on the fly or very, very cheaply. So, or affordably, I should say. And so over time, I think what's going to happen is you have the framework to evaluate this software. And soon what's going to happen is you're going to realize that most of what people do in their business is like knowledge work, especially if you're sitting in front of a laptop and doing work. And then you start really thinking about the true cost of your hour versus a digital worker's hour, right? And a digital worker's cost might be pennies. And that is something that I think is going to be, the revolution is underway, where I believe that in the next couple of years, most of these business functions that rely on mouse and keyboard input and work on the internet and communication, if that is your role, will be something that will be heavily scrutinized by these AI companies and automated, and not automated in a negative way, automated in a way that is, this will help the company thrive. And you shouldn't be wasting time on Slack every single day. You shouldn't be wasting time scrolling through LinkedIn or TikTok or Instagram. You shouldn't be stuck making reports for your boss about this or that. All those things will turn into, I can just do this for cents, literally cents. Now what should I do with my time, right? You kind of have a higher level of strategic thinking. So I think it's going to go for, is this software worth it, right? And like you're saying, think of it as like a time saving, to what would I pay for this outcome, right? What would I pay for a perfectly manicured market research report every single week that gets sent directly to my boss, that is exactly the format that they want, with exactly the information they want? Would you spend a couple cents for that? I mean, that seems like a pretty good deal. right? Forget even like software, just think about that world. And so I think it's going to evolve. So the framework stands, but the evaluation is going to be a little bit different, I think, moving forward.
Bro, I love this. I want to ask you about the manufacturing process. I know we're coming up on time, so maybe this will be the last big thing that we'll get into today. But, we'll go back to the coffee mug example. So I'm sold. I have the idea that I'm going to launch these coffee mugs, ceramic. They're going to have like this special handle associated with them. I'm thinking if you've seen like those rock climbing coffee mugs that have the rock climbing holds on it, I'm building something just like that. We'll go with that
Okay.
one. You walk me through, how do I go about actually getting this product either like to a third-party logistics station, a 3PL, or to like my house, wherever I'm going to store these products so I can get ready to ship the first one to a consumer?
Yeah, so I love this. I think an original way to do this was you would probably just boot up Google and say, I'm looking for a ceramic mug factory. And then you'd probably get a international website and you'd have to contact them and hopefully they speak English and you can go and talk to them and say, hey, I kind of have this idea. And they'll say something like, what are your specs? Wait, do you have a brief? Do you have a tech pack? Do you have designs? Are you new to this? And on would go this back and forth of they would be kind of angry that you know nothing. And you would be like, can you just help me? I just want to get this from my head into the world. Now, when you go to Pietra, I encourage everyone to just try this. You will be presented with a business AI that can help you do this. And you could say something like, can you help me find a factory to make ceramic mugs? Maybe in some part of the region, but you could just type that in. What the AI is going to do is going to say, I can help you. I can help you create designs and mock it up. I can help you create a product brief. Here's 5 factories that I have found in different parts of the world. I've actually looked and analyzed their businesses, and these are their MOQs, and this is the price point, and this is what you need to know, and here's their contact information. And so it starts as simple as that. You can go to Pietra and type in, can you help me find factories that make X? It will literally go in 30 seconds and give you 10 factories that make X. You'll look at 50,000 of them. You could even say things like, can you go find me clothing factories that work with Nike? And they'll say, yeah, you don't have to pay me anything. I will go and find you 10 factories that can make hoodies or whatever it is that work with Nike. So it's super simple. You just go to the AI and you tell it what you want to do, and it will go do the work for you. If the information exists somewhere on the internet or somewhere in Pietra, it will pull that information and it will literally give it to you in 30 seconds. And I just tried it while we were on this call. I typed in, could you help me find a factory to make new lip glosses in the USA? And it came back and gave me 5 factories in the USA that work with all the top brands in America. It says, here's the email information. Here's a typical MOQ, so you should be aware of it. And by the way, if you want to like design that lip gloss and you want to like create a tech pack, you want to talk about formula, let me know and I'll help you create, a beautiful product brief that when you send it to the factories, they take you seriously. And then, when they ask questions, you have this coach who's like, hey, they asked me if I want this or that, like, tell me about it. And you have this business coach that will basically help educate you. And it's that simple. To simplify it all down to, you want to find a factory now in the world, you don't have to hire an agency. You just have to go to Pietra and you get to type in, can you help me find this factory that makes X? And it's going to do it. Yeah. And if you're really a power user, you'll realize that what Pietra can do is they will say, do you want me to reach out to all these factories for you? Do you want me to get quotes for you? Real quotes. Do you want me to email you back once I find a factory that can actually make it? And that's when you start getting into the real fun, where you can deploy these agents to go do the next step and the next step and the next step.
Ro, this is wild. So listeners, one final plug for Pietra, but definitely check out the site. Ro, first, where can users actually find Pietra online? First, what's your website? What social channels should they go to? Give us the rundown.
Yeah, good. It's www.pietrastudio.com. If you just Google Pietra, ChatGPT, the word Pietra, Pietra, you'll get to where you need to be. And then you can follow us on all the social channels at Shop Pietra. And I would encourage everyone, if you're a small business owner and you've been thinking about launching a business and kind of escaping that 9 to 5, just type in Pietra, go through the first run experience, and you tell me if you don't immediately get hooked and say, oh my God, my dream business is, a couple hours away, not a couple of years away.
Once again, listeners, this is Ronak or Ro Trivedi, the co-founder and CEO over at Pietra. Ro, thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Pat.
Thanks for tuning in to Customer Growth Sessions. If you found it helpful, subscribe and give us a review. It helps us to grow the show. Looking for more SEO guidance on how to grow your business? Contact us at intergrowth.com/estimator or email me directly. You can reach me at pat@intergrowth.com. That's all for today. We'll see you again soon.